Welcome to the Nerd Pow Wow. Follow us on YouTube where we upload new videos every Friday, or check us out on your favorite podcast platform. Spoiler warning, we do deep dives on characters, storylines, and theory crafting. With that said, Wayne, what are we talking about today?
Well, we have a Happy Valentine's Day special edition of the Nerd Pow Wow. We're going to deep dive into some power couples that we all enjoy. I think first we'll start with Darkwing Duck and his love, Morgana Macabre. The way that Darkwing met Morgana is basically there was pizza topping thefts in St. Canard. While investigating these thefts, he ran into Morgana. So basically, he was drawn to her immediately. She was able to, have him wrapped around her little finger. So for the while, even though she started as a villain, he he never believed that she actually was a criminal. So basically, that episode ended with him figuring out that they were feeding these mushrooms. So these were live organic mushrooms that smelled like pizza toppings. And they were pizza toppings that can never go bad. So basically, and basically down the rabbit hole with Morgana and Darkwing, Negaduck was part of a lot of the episodes with Morgana. Even Darkwing and Negaduck was sort of kind of pals at one point because Negaduck wanted to convince Morgana that he had given up his life of crime just like her. Obviously, that didn't work. Negaduck was just lying. He was trying to woo her back into the life of crime. And it just didn't work with that. And then the one episode where Darkwing got to meet Morgana's family. So basically, Morgana's Morgana's father turned Darkwing into a wolf. Gosling got turned into a Frankenduck, and the Launchpad got turned into a blood-sucking bat.
An age-old story we can all commiserate with.
It happened to me. My first Thanksgiving with an ex of mine. It's kind of weird.
Oh, yeah. Blood-sucking bat. So they go into town where I guess they had a pact with the villagers. Well, since they went into town, the villagers said, nope, pitchforks and fire. We're going after those monsters. And at the end of that episode, of course, Darkwing, basically the townsfolk decided to come up with a compromise with the monsters. Now the monsters had this amusement park, museum, that now the townsfolk could come visit. And another with Morgana is Justice Ducks. When the Fearsome Five took over St. Canard, Darkwing was all mad because he wanted to do it all by himself. He wanted to get the glory. But finally he got his butt beat pretty easily, pretty quick. And finally the Justice Ducks got kidnapped by the Fearsome Five, and Darkwing came and saved the day. So Morgana was a little character in the whole series of Darkwing Duck, but that kind of sets us off with this, love matchmaking Valentine's Day special Nerd Pow Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. I really didn't watch a lot of Darkwing Duck, so it's really cool. I mean, I always loved Gizmo Duck. I don't know why. Maybe it's the nerdy robot version of anything is up my alley. But so it's just kind of fun to hear the this like lore from the Darkwing Duck universe. That's kind of great. I love it.
Yeah, they had about 100 episodes.
When are we going to get live action? That's my question.
Yeah, I would love that.
I know you.
I would love that.
You would love that so much.
Like there was a couple Comic-Cons ago that I went and they had Jim Cummings, the voice of Darkwing Duck, sitting on and answering, doing a Q&A. So I sat in that and just hearing his voice, because he did multiple characters. He did Pooh, he did Tigger, he did Taz. I mean, he did many other characters.
We go to a Comic-Con. We should do an entire Darkwing character thing. I would love to go to a Comic-Con as Gizmo Duck. That'd be freaking great.
Well, as a kid, I actually made a paper mask. I'd get a fedora. I wore a cape. And I'd run around the backyard and
Full 9
just
yards.
be in Darkwing Duck. Yeah.
That's great.
Oh yeah.
I remember playing X-Men in the factory, big factory yard, just a big open space. We'd all play X-Men and stuff.
Oh
so
yeah.
Good. So good.
Yeah, lots of good memories.
Yeah. Too good. Yeah, I'd like to have seen more of those, but that's a good power couple to kick us off because it's really kind of retro. I really like that, going back to that kind of thing. It's neat.
Yeah, it also, and Morgana wanted to be a hero. I think to kind of make up for the fact that she was a villain. And the one time she came to help, she kept turning Darkwing into pudding. So, or a lot of times she turned him into a yak. And it seems like he always pissed her off, and she was just shooting at him, trying to change him into something else. I mean,
aren't they always?
Yeah.
Into something else.
No, but
so
it is a cool thing that this character sees Darkwing, doing good, and kind of wants to change your ways, and they find a connection in that.
Yeah, she had the bats named Eek and Squeak, and
because of course they are.
Yeah, she had a spider, and I can't remember its name at the moment.
Legs.
Yeah, she had Eek and Squeak, and then a spider.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Booter.
That's funny. That's a cool one to kick us off. Wayne, what else you got?
Well, another one I really enjoy, in Star Trek: The Next Generation, you got Riker and Troy. Commander Riker, Counselor Troy. They start off basically the first episode of the first season. Riker's new to the Enterprise, and as he boards, he runs right into Troy. And they don't say anything at that point, but there's a hint of history. And then as the series goes on, she always calls him Azadi. And I guess they do have, Troy's Beta Z, so she's got telepathy, but she's only half Beta Z, half human. So she really only can feel emotions, but with Riker, she was able to connect with him where they could read each other's thoughts to a point. And then just during the seven series seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation, they never pushed onto a relationship and anything. Even Troy on the last season was dating Worf at the time. And Worf asked Riker's permission, and Riker gave him permission to date her. And then once the Next Generation movies came out, that's when they got married. There was more of a relationship there. And then when Picard came out, they were married. They had been married for quite some time. They had a son who had passed away, and then they had a daughter that was living with them at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you, that's the Picard series. I really love what the Picard series did for the Next Generation characters.
Oh yes.
I felt like it was really the ending and send off that they kind of deserved. So seeing those characters, and Troy and Riker were a big part of that. I can't think of another relationship in a Star Trek at all off the top of my head that was like a relationship that lasted and was like always there from the beginning all the way through. I can't think of other. And most of the captains were kind of man horse, and and so it's nice to see. It's kind of cool that they finally had one and they did it in a way that wasn't. I hate when shows get into the will they or won't they thing, and they ride it out for too long. They use it for too long. And even though there was flashes of that it was never the main course of their relationship. It was just an immersive part of the Star Trek universe. It wasn't like the theme of it. It wasn't Ross and Rachel for 7 seasons. It was just something that was going on in their lives, and it was just, I think that was really well done in that series.
to your point, they did that with Star Trek Discovery with Burnham and Booker. He was there for about 2 or 3 seasons, and it was 2 or 3 seasons too much.
Because the two characters never had chemistry.
No, and that's the thing about Star Trek, and Strange New Worlds really hit on that. Each episode's supposed to be about a different character. That's just the way Star Trek is. But Star Trek Discovery stuck on Michael Burnham the whole series. Like, that's not what Star Trek is supposed to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, so it's an ensemble.
Yeah, exactly. And I really didn't care for Discovery, mainly for that fact.
I can see that. Although I'll tell you that a couple that I'm shipping is Spock and Nurse Chapel.
Oh, yes. From Strange New Worlds.
I think that the actress that they have, I think she's fantastic. I mean, obviously she's beautiful. I mean, there's no choice, but there's lots of beautiful actresses. She has something more than that. She just adds something to that character that is just really, really perfect. She has like a vulnerability and an interest and a fierceness all at the same time that's really cool. And I like that coupled up with Spock's like trying to be, stoic, trying to lean into that Vulcan side of him, even though this younger version of Spock doesn't lean into his Vulcan side as hard as his older version and other versions of him does. So, I just like that whole dynamic. There's a whole dynamic there that's just really interesting. I'm really into that.
I do really agree with that. But you're right. They do a nice job they have that relationship in there, but they still do the Star Trek theme.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in Next Generation. Picard and Crusher, they had a thing going there for a little bit.
Yeah.
But they moved off of that. And even with Worf and Troy.
The couple of them that cracked me up, though, were like Worf and Tasha Yar, I think. And then who was with Data? No, was it Data and Tasha?
It was Data and Tasha.
It was Data and Tasha. That was it. I don't know. That was kind of goofy to me. It was just funny. And then,
Data with around anybody can be a little goofy, though.
Yeah.
Well, you remember the episode where Data had a girlfriend? I can't remember her name, but she had just gotten out of a relationship, and Data was nice because Data's nice. So she tried to have a relationship with him. Well, he downloaded programs to be the best boyfriend, and it really backfired.
It really did.
She fell in love with the Data who was Data, and then he tried to be good at relationships.
He's over there trying to be a hookup artist.
Yeah. But and then when Worf was in Deep Space Nine, he was with Dax. Yeah. And then
I actually kind of like that was really unique because he knew Dax in her previous host.
Yeah. Who
was a male. And so that whole dynamic was just it was correctly mature. I really liked that kind of showed to me like it showed people in the future as being a lot more mature. Like those kind of she was it was like so.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was just I just really liked the maturity that they handled all that with. It was kind of cool. And I really liked the actress that played Dax too, the original I cannot remember that version of Dax's first name. Jadzia.
That was Jadzia Dax, and then she died at the end of the 6th season.
Right.
And she was Ezri Dax.
Ezri. I know, Ezri said Jadzia. Yep, that's but that was I really like Jadzia. I mean, not that Ezri was a bad one, but there was something about that. I don't know. Jadzia with the bat lift. I mean, come on.
Oh yeah.
Great.
Because I remember at the start of season 7, Ezri tried to connect with Worf, knowing she wasn't the same person, same Trill, but different person. And Worf was like, "Nope, I know you're different."
Yeah. But I like that. That was good.
Yeah.
So
the Next Generation had an episode like that where Crusher fell in love with a Trill, and he ended up dying, and Riker actually took possession of the Trill.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Until they could get an actual host. And Riker's character was in love with Crusher because of the host, or I'm sorry, because of the Trill.
Right.
Oh yeah, and Crusher wasn't all about that.
No. Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. But
and so
Star Trek had some good things for those kind of interrelationships. I enjoyed that.
yeah, just in Picard when Troy and Riker were married, they were living solo with their daughter Kestra. Riker was making pizzas. That was his big thing. He made pizzas, and I guess they had a child named Thaddeus Worf Troy Riker that passed away. He died from a condition called mandaxic nersulosis, which I have no idea what that is. It's a bunch of words.
It's a bunch of words, which
But yeah,
Star Trek is also notorious for.
exactly.
They start once in a while. They lean out of their science fiction into the let's just make up something that sounds cool.
It's a strike.
But that's all right. That's Star Trek. Yeah.
That's the thing. Riker was a man whore the whole 7 seasons of Next Generation, but Troy didn't care. That's just who he was. And so one episode where Riker was doing surveillance on a planet that they were thinking about having joined the Federation, but they're doing surveillance first. There was an accident where he got injured, unconscious. They took him to their hospital. He was still in their camouflage, but they immediately found, hey, the organs are all in the wrong spot and everything like that. Well, this one nurse comes in, I'll help you escape, but you have to have sex with me. And he's like, no. And she's like, well, if you want to get out of here, that's what's going to happen. So he did.
It's the cost for the plot.
Like, oh, okay, the cost of business. And sure, 5 seconds after he left that room, he got beat up to the point of almost death. So it didn't really help.
As it goes.
Yeah.
Sometimes love hurts.
Yeah. And I'm terrible with titles of the episodes, but some of those Next Generation episodes really mirrored in a way an original episode like that, because they had something similar where Kirk was on a planet and the people were almost like Amerindian type. They were really like a native people, and he had lost his name. That's the one where he screams Key Rock because he thinks he can't remember his name. He thinks it's his name is Kirk, but just very similar. Like once in a while, I felt like the Next Generation would grab a trope or grab a flavor from an original episode and kind of try to bring that into the current people. They did that a few times, but
yeah, they did.
It's good.
There was also that I guess virus that got on the ship and was making them dumber as time went on. Yeah. And then Crusher was able to correct that just like McCoy was.
You just made me think of the episode where Geordi and who I forget who all it was, but they got turned into those other creatures on that planet.
Oh yeah, it was it was just Geordi and that away team that was down on that one planet years before.
Yeah, and they realized that he'd left offspring.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was hilarious to me.
Remember on Voyager, Tom Paris and Janeway were turned into these creatures and mated.
You know what? That might be. Was that the one that looked like kind of like newts?
Like lizard. Yeah, like newt.
Yeah. That's the episode I'm thinking about.
Okay.
That's the episode I was thinking about.
Yeah, it was Tom Paris and Janeway, but Geordi did turn into a creature.
That he had the glowing skin.
Yep.
Yeah, he had the glowing skin, and they couldn't bring the other ones back. I just was flip-flopping the episodes in my head, but that's right.
Well, there's a couple from Voyagers. Remember when Q wanted to have a baby with Janeway?
I remember that.
And then there was a female Q that showed up and was very, very jealous about this.
I feel like the writers sometimes were like, we want to have something really insanely ridiculous happen. What do we do? Like, I just make it do Q. Make it Q do it, because Q is ridiculous.
Or by season 4, I think they were worried about their ratings. So how do you fix this? Oh, let's bring in the Borg. So there's 7 of 9, and then Borg Queen, and we got to go through Borg space to get home.
Yeah, I mean, it was a smart choice. I mean, the Borg were, it always cracks me up how things evolve in these shows too. Like, I didn't like the Borg at first because I thought it just like they had all of this shit strapped to them. Like somebody just at the costume department was gluing on chunks of things that served no purpose. It looked ridiculous. It was obviously all exterior, not interior. I'm like, where did your budget go? It's just terrible. But they ended up streamlining them and making them an actual real threat. Because they were very zombie-esque at the beginning, and I just really liked how it evolved. They did a good job of bringing that to making them more robust and a little bit more less campy. I hated them at first, just strapping shit on their heads.
And at the beginning, they were too powerful. I mean, there was no way Starfleet should have beat them. I mean, there really isn't. The whole Data zapping into Picard or Locutus to put them all to sleep. But yeah, but now Voyager can just shoot a torpedo at him and destroy a cube. It's all
that disappointed me. Yeah, I mean, they explained it away, but that actually disappointed me in Voyager. I felt like they really nerfed the Borg. I liked how ominous it was when a cube rolled in. Everybody's asshole clenched. I mean, everybody's like,
"Oh yeah,"
everybody's like, and I liked that like really present threat. But they really kind of nerfed it, and like they had to, even with Locutus. I mean, Locutus, they had to. It was a loophole. They had a way in. So that was the only chance they had. It's the 1 in a million shot. So, yeah, and they just kind of like.
Yeah, Best of Both Worlds was an amazing 2-parter, but the Borg didn't need Picard to do what they wanted to do. They just needed to zip right into Earth and boom, 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 and there you go.
And I do think that there was a certain, with the Borg having the Queen, and the Queen kind of retaining her individuality in a way, I think her arrogance and need for dominance was their downfall. And so they didn't need Picard, but she wanted Picard. She felt like she needed. He had stood up to. He'd become known to her, and individuals were never known to her. So she didn't. There was not. So that made him this enigma to her. He was this anomaly. So that needed to be assimilated. I think they drove the need for that pretty well, even though mechanically they really didn't need him. He wasn't anything special. But
yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
At least that's how I rationalized it in my head when I was watching it. So cool. Yeah, I think we could probably devolve into Star Trek. For a long time, but
easily. There's so many different topics, so many different series. I mean, we could bounce around all day long if we wanted to.
For sure.
I think we'll have a lot of Star Trek in our future.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna have to get caught up on some of these episodes. Refreshed.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of the Voyager stuff I haven't seen since I was a kid, so it's like I really liked 7 of 9 when I was a kid.
Yeah, 7 of 9 saved Voyager. That's the honest truth.
She did. Well, you should, John, just start off really obscure and like watch the animated series, the original animated series.
Yeah.
Start off like really obscure, so you come up here and people will be like blown away.
I'll have all the obscure knowledge. I won't know anything about Picard. I'm like, who's Picard? But yeah, the Tribbles.
Oh, you got to know the trouble with Tribbles.
Yeah, the trouble with Tribbles.
Dude, that I know I'm devolving into more Star Trek stuff, but when they did the retro flashback stuff with the Tribbles and put Deep Space Nine, it was Cisco and them were on the Enterprise, like hiding up in the bay with all the Tribbles, and they had the footage from the other ones. that was great. Like to see like modern day characters like dropping tribbles down and seeing young Kirk reacting to it. That was really that was well done. That was well done. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
look at this guy.
Oh, there you go.
I never remember. Are you supposed to not feed it after midnight? Oh wait, that's not the right. I always felt like the Gremlins were just took the Tribble idea and blew it up. Like they were literally
Gave it a little bit more
the
Jim
same
Henson.
kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the Tribbles were always nice. They just made it and had lots of babies.
Yeah.
Lots of babies.
That's actually something I hated in the one of the Calvinverse ones where the Super Tribble was what they needed to have. The immortal Super Tribble was what fixed what fixed them and brought them back. I'm like, I don't know. That was like,
this is how we undo the genocide that our protagonists have embarked on.
Right.
Oh my god.
Saved by the Tribbles. Just using something that is a well-known thing to try to sell movies is so gross. Like, just tell a good story in that universe. Do it with storytelling. Don't do it by trying to use nostalgia and everything else. I can't think of a time that has not failed. It's okay to have nostalgia elements, but don't base your entire new presentation on nostalgia.
Yeah.
Every time you do that, it fails. I don't think there's a single exception to the fact on a nostalgia-based show that just wasn't a failure, even in successful environments. But
that's fair.
Yeah. Well, John, what did you pick, man? We should probably get back to Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, I want to talk a little bit about Titus and Yuna from Final Fantasy X. I picked them as a power couple to talk about. Titus is the star athlete of the Xanarkand Abes, which is basically a underwater soccer game. They play blitzball, which is an underwater soccer game. And while he's performing in a high level tournament, the city is destroyed, and he is taken somewhere else to the world of Spira, where it's a kind of a couple centuries back in time, it feels like. And everything's very basic, and he meets a lot of other characters. Among them, he meets guardians of a young summoner woman named Yuna. Through basically proximity, Titus forms a relationship with Yuna, which is the summoner. And their goal is to defeat a creature called Sin. The story goes into a lot of like kind of the sins of our fathers and just the way generations do things. And, eventually there's one generation that just needs to do different. And that's kind of part of what this story is about. But it's also a lot of it's the love story between Titus and Yuna as they grow a bond together. Titus is kind of a fish out of water in this world. He doesn't know what's going on. But there's kind of this ongoing sadness with the guardians of Yuna. Whenever he talks very optimistically. So you see Yuna always very happy that he's optimistic, but there's this kind of sadness about everybody else. And so you see this very optimistic story at first, but it gets pretty sad through there. And through that, a lot of different things. They go through a lot of different tropes of romance. But ultimately, without too many spoilers, I guess, ultimately, one character gives it all for the other. And then they ended up making a second Final Fantasy X game, Final Fantasy X-2, which is basically kind of the picking up the pieces from the original one and what it looks like to move on after, certain things happen in life. So I think they were excellent stories. I think it's a great depiction of love in media, where you have Titus, which is this he's kind of a jock. He gets a sword, whatever, and then you have the summoner who can call forth these divine beings, and they find a way to see the beauty in one another. So that's why I picked that.
That's good. That's a good choice. In I mean, I enjoyed the story too. I actually have a terrible side note to Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
The final fight when you're up on the outside of the ship and you're doing that final fight there.
Oh yeah.
The game system or the disc that I had froze there.
Oh,
It would not play beyond that. I could
That's
load a save point and come up to it, but I couldn't get to that. And
oh,
that's why I never finished it. I was so enraged by the fact I
this
just
is this
never
is
did
the
it.
third time I've heard of that happening with Final Fantasy
Oh,
X.
really?
Yes, you're the third
That's
person I've heard say that. You get to the
I
final
didn't know.
boss
I didn't
battle
know
and
that it
like
was a thing.
right when you're there, like the game just stops like on one frame. It's just like it decides every time it's
Yep.
gonna freeze there.
Wow, I thought that was something like isolated to my machine. I didn't know that other people had experienced it.
Yeah,
It was like,
yeah,
ugh.
no, that's hilarious.
But,
I mean, not hilarious
yeah,
because that's like the worst time to have that
oh,
ripped out from under you. My
oh,
gosh.
no kidding.
it
Wow.
is. Especially at that time. I mean, I still invest a lot of time and energy and stuff like that into video games, but it's different. Back then, it was like the investment felt more personal than I think it does now. Now I really enjoy it. It still means something, like especially with games like Baldur's Gate. I put a lot into that game with really wanting it to go certain ways, and that's probably the closest thing to capturing that I've played in a long time. But but back then, man, God, it was catastrophic. I mean, it ruined me for days, like days.
You know
I
what?
was
If you would have sat through the ending of the game, that would have also ruined you for days. So don't feel too bad.
Well, instead, I just just kind of like learned what the ending was. But obviously, it's different than getting to watch it.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's
experience
funny you bring up Final Fantasy characters like that though, because I think Final Fantasy itself has done a good job with romance in the stories.
Oh
Because
yeah,
obviously it was seven. I felt like the whole game is shipping um uh what's her Eris, the flower girl.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I just felt like they're shipping her, and the whole
Harrison
time I'm
Cobb.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, and the whole time I'm like, I'm Tifa all day. I'm Team Tifa, man. I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah. No, that's
she's
fair.
just so cool.
Yeah,
Like, and it was just, it's all about the flower girl, and I'm like, but Tifa. And the worst part is the game would give you choices.
yeah.
Remember, it'd give you choices where you could kind of lean Team Tifa, but ultimately it didn't really matter. It was
No,
still pretty linear. I'm like, damn it.
yeah.
But yeah,
That my favorite thing about the Final Fantasy games is they tell a very good story. They don't hold up to Baldur's Gate 3 though, as far as like being able to choose your own adventure and find your path. Like the way you
it's a
fight battles, the way
technology.
you customize your
Yeah,
characters, all that stuff is very, very fleshed out.
yeah.
But yeah, the story it's you're on a train track. That's for
They
sure.
are. I mean, I think that's only technology that held them back from having that
Yeah.
choose your own adventure quality. Because even like, oh, I want to butcher it, but the Final Fantasy, was it four here, five? That had the king that used the tools. His brother was the monk. It had the elemental girl that changed. Oh, what is that? Uh, I think it was Final Fantasy four. It had the thief that was part of the group.
Mm.
It's not four. It's got to be five. And they were different in the U.S. versus Japan
Yeah, I
too.
know they did
It
three
it
and
is it
four or
is
five and
five.
six or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, Final Fantasy five. Um, that was a fantastic game when it came to the interpersonal relationships throughout that entire game. Like
Yeah.
you were really like the story like carried. It wasn't. I don't know. I think just the Final Fantasy games in general are really good for that. A lot of times the story is in these games. I will zip through them. Like I will spacebar through stories a lot of times
Yeah.
because it's just like it's story 001 of a million other stories that are exactly the same story with different names. But the Final Fantasy ones had a much more um so they just
They
carried
have
more.
a
They
very
had more
unique
charisma.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like
I
even
think that's
like
what really
villains
sells
like
the games too.
They do, and like even villains like Kafka. I'm not gonna remember which Final Fantasy he's from offhand, but every time he'd show up, he'd try to fight him and he'd get away, and he had this little 8-bit laugh that just infuriates me to this day. If I were to hear a soundbite of that, I'm like, I gotta find Kafka and kill him again because I can't stand the damn.
Oh no! If I hear the dog from Duck
well
Hunt,
done.
that's the one that gets me.
Oh yeah, everybody shot that dog.
Yeah, it's so funny.
So yeah, Titus and Yuna, are they only in 10?
Yeah. So the way the Final Fantasy games work is they're kind of almost like an anthology in a way where none of the stories really connect. They're all just different fantasy stories, but Final Fantasy X specifically is the one that follows Yuna and Titus, and then they did 10-2, which but they did an HD remaster a few years back, which is pretty good. It's a good port. They have it on Steam now, but I think a lot of the Final Fantasies, you do focus, you're right, John, you focus around all the relationships between all these characters, and like Final Fantasy VII, you're like, Tifa, Cloud should be with Tifa, not Aerith, right? But Final Fantasy X, that was never a question. Like, the answer, like, from the minute you're introduced to these characters, you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. They go together.
I noticed Wayne's face when you said that about Tifa. He's Team Aerith. We need Team Aerith and Team Tifa T-shirts, buddy. I'll get you. I think that'd be great.
but exactly. So it's like everybody can have like a different outlook on those characters. But man, I'll tell you what, Titus and Yuna, it's locked in with them. And there's even like the cringy things that happen in relationships where two people are just laughing for no reason. Like they throw that stuff in there. It's really, really endearing, very cute stuff. But yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you play underwater soccer?
Dude,
that's
Blitzball was fun.
Blitzball
that was fun though.
One of the best side games in a Final Fantasy was Blitzball.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. So Blitzball
underwater.
Yeah, so your characters can breathe underwater because it's Final Fantasy.
Right.
Only some people can, which I didn't figure that out. Like some characters can breathe underwater, some can't. And like between races and like ability sets, there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason, but just because these are the characters they want in the water, these are the ones they don't. Because you do have underwater battles and stuff too, but any of the Blitzball players, they can breathe underwater for some reason. But basically these huge spherical balls are generated of water. The players dive in basically, and in this whole Coliseum arena, they're trying to catch the Blitzball, and it's kind of like a soccer meets football type of game where you pass the ball, you dribble different areas. You can use some of your Final Fantasy attacks to tackle through people to try and get to the goal line.
That's like a side game.
Unique enough.
Yeah, it's a side game. It's like the best side game. It's so good.
It was, and it was unique enough to be its own sport. Like, we're trying to generalize it for other people's understanding, but it really wasn't soccer.
No,
you know what I mean, you played it. I mean, it had elements there. I mean, you're using your feet to kick these spheres around, but they really did a good job to flesh out this sport as its own like thing. It was neat.
It was good enough if they made some more. Like they made some more teams and stuff. They could have made like its own video game out of Blitzball.
I agree.
It was so
Blitzball
good.
was fun.
It was so good. But yeah. So and then there's also some other character interactions. Like Titus is he's a star athlete from this mysterious land that nobody knows of because he just kind of showed up on Spira. So you have this guy who's like, oh, he just has amnesia. But hey, he's really good with the Blitzball, so hey, come for us. We're the Besaid Aurochs. We suck. We are so bad. We're the worst team in the league. But now we have you. We got a star player. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll follow you guys too, But yeah, it's just...
Were they good after that?
Depends on how good you were as a player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was side game, but it actually was story relevant, unlike some of the side games have been
Yeah.
historically in Final Fantasy.
Yep.
It had some story relevance there.
Would you like to play cards?
Yeah. Yeah, or what was the all the game that in that one town, that like casino thing in Final Fantasy VII had all kinds of cool little sub games.
Yeah.
But you know, I haven't played a lot of the games after 11. Yeah, I tried. I tried, but they just lost some of the magic. I think when they started going to hyper realism in their characters, and they were getting more and more. I didn't mind the that like Magitech thing that they had with like magic in empowered technology and stuff, but like you got these guys driving around in cars, and
I'd be okay with that stuff. What really took me out of it is I expect my Final Fantasy games to be turn based, but they started making them into that active battle system, which I know a lot of people do prefer, but I don't know, my game style, if I want to play a Final Fantasy, I want it to be kind of like Baldur's Gate, or a game where it's let's make smart tactical decisions, and you have to make the best decision each time, or you could lose the battle.
100%. 100%. That's why I like the Dragon Warriors, Dragon Quest, Final Fantasies, all of that type of turn-based tactical kind of thing. Even down to the point of like Final Fantasy Tactics. Final Fantasy Tactics is one of my favorite games of all time. I mean, it's
really good.
It's easily in the top 5 games of all time to me. Just love that game. But yeah, I just think they got away from it. They got away from the magic of the stories. That they got away from the game style gameplay. It felt really sellouty. I don't know what changed. I'm not one that like goes and looks up and says, which developer has now left or came in there or anything else. I just know what sucks and what doesn't. So
fair
to me,
fair.
at least.
Yeah,
because even 11 was good. I enjoyed 11. It was interesting. They had the retro black and white wizards. You got the little strange monkey kid. It was cool. It was different. They still captured it, but yeah, they after that can't do it.
Yeah. Yep.
Very cool.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, do we have some comic book characters to talk about? We're
Well,
talking about shipping
I
people.
do. Yeah. I do. I mean, I live in all these universes, but I think if I had to delve into one, the comic book was, but I kind of went a different route. I know we were kind of doing the power couple thing, but I found there was there's a lot of like one-off relationships or unexpected relationships. So I picked a few of those that I just thought were kind of fun, different, whatever, maybe a little lesser known. For example, like for a while, so in the comics, She-Hulk was always, a lawyer. She'd even be a lawyer as the Hulk or whatever. For a while there in the comics, in a more recent setting, they made her more Hulk-like. She was having rage issues the whole bit, and she was much larger. I mean, she got to be massive, and apparently that really enamored her to Thor. So her and Thor having this this wild like romance where she's twice, maybe 2.5 times bigger than he is. So
she's bringing the love and thunder.
She's bringing the love and thunder. I thought that one was kind of cool, because they both had I'm not a big. I mean, I like She-Hulk, but I never really dove into her comics, so I don't know all of her normal romantic interludes. But that one, I'm a big Thor fan, so I thought that one was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Also, because Thor's had some, he's got Jane Foster, he's got everything else, but he's Sif obviously. So that he's had some ones, and then just to throw this over there, and I don't know, it was just very I just really enjoyed that one, so I figured I'd bring that one up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because it rolls into the Jane Foster thing. So another one that happened was Jane, after her and Thor, when Jane was Thor, she actually got involved with Falcon while Sam Wilson as Captain America. So you had these guys were practically like teenagers working at TGI Fridays for a while. The way they would just pass each other around. It was like, like who's sleeping with who this week. You got, you had all kinds of stuff. I mean, and they were really good for that for a while, like putting these people together. Like, I'm kind of touching it. These were very short, like interludes. These weren't long things, so they don't have a lot of like story to dive into. I just wanted to bring them up because I thought they were funny. Yeah. Another one that was funny is Star-Lord and Kitty Pryde. Like that one got serious. They were supposed to get married in the comics. Like, I actually really liked those two together. There was some fun things there, and it also added right to. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Kitty Pryde and the Peters. You ever heard of that?
No.
So there's like Kitty has had relationships with like 4 Marvel characters, 4 or 5 that have been named Peter.
Oh.
She has or Pietro. I mean, they always call him Pete. So obviously you got Colossus. Yeah. So you got Pete. You got Pete there. You got a guy named Pete Wisdom, which most people don't know who he is, but he's part of MI13 out of Britain. He's there. That's Britain's paranormal investigator guy. He's a cool character. He's kind of like a trench coat, typical kind of cool Brit kind of guy, with some mystical abilities and getting into the whole paranormal thing. In the Ultimate Universe, she was involved with the original Spider-Man before he was replaced by Miles Morales. So she had him, and then and then Peter Quill. So it's a thing that people talk about is Shadowcat or Kitty Pryde in her Peters, which is just kind of funny. I don't know. They sometimes in comics they do crazy stuff like that, and I always enjoyed that. Like, have you ever heard of the LL thing with Superman? Superman had this weird thing. They actually had comics about this way back and early on. Is what is the mystery of LL? Because you have Lex Luthor, Lana Lang, Lois Lane. I mean, he had all of these LLs throughout his things. And I don't honestly. I just thought of that just now. I don't even remember what it was or if it was coincidence, or whatever. They made it a big thing in the comics. Like there were front splash covers of the Superman comics. What's the mystery of LL and Superman? And especially because you've got like Kal-El, Jor-El. I mean, like just the letter L is so prevalent in everything Superman. It's kind of was kind of interesting. And then so going back to the other things, another one I thought was really cool. That I really liked, and I really shipped it for a while, was Storm and T'Challa. Storm and Black Panther was I thought that was a phenomenal. Yeah. I really was kind of sorry that didn't last longer. There's just something that that duo.
Well, Storm can't leave the X-Men, and T'Challa's he's dedicated to his people, so.
But still, I can make it work. Good guy,
Storm has no greater love than the X-Men, and that duty and responsibility. And
the Age of Apocalypse with Wolverine and Storm.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yep.
Yeah. The X-Men are known for their relationships. My gosh, and their power couples.
They are.
Yeah, and that was good. The last one I was going to bring in is going to kind of hand it to you. Wayne, was a little bit was Rogue and Magneto. So in the Savage Land having their thing, and they actually touch base on that all the time. Like, so a lot of times these relationships, like the ones I mentioned, once it happens, it's kind of done and over. And they never really bring it back because the comic gets handed to new writers. And they don't necessarily go back and do their research. They know the characters, so they don't have that. But the Rogue and Magneto, they keep that alive. Like, there's always this weird, like, Magneto has a hang-up with her a little bit. And obviously, she has her love of her life there, as Wayne is intimately sure with his fandom over there.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I believe it's more or less that Rogue can touch Magneto, and I think that means a lot.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Over the course of the comics with Gambit and Rogue, there have been times that Gambit has been able to touch Rogue. Mm-hmm. Various reasons for her losing her powers, for her being able to control her powers. And then, everybody's like, well, why don't you grab one of those Genosha collars, put it on? And that was just something never the comics wanted to venture with. Which, that's fair. I mean, Rogue Rogue's an amazing talent.
Yeah.
With her strength, with I don't
Everything she stole from Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel.
Yeah, that's right. Carol Danvers.
Well,
Carol Danvers.
yeah. But that's something that I kind of have a modern complaint with. I always like the tragedy of Rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rogue is a lover. She's a loving person. She's very she has that like southern charm kind of thing, you know. She's just kind of great. And her not being able to touch anybody, it's tragic. It's tragic. And just recently they took that away. She now is cured. Spiral helped cure her, and
Yeah.
she has regained full control of her powers now. So she can turn that on and off. And I mean, I guess maybe there's an argument for this has been going on for however many years. Maybe it's time to give this girl a little peace instead of Shakespeareing her constantly. But you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So there's something to be said for that. I kind of do that, but it it's just a loss of a really cool dynamic, and I kind of hate to see it go. On one other hand, one hand, I like Rogue. I mean, maybe it's time to give the poor girl some peace. but yeah, it's interesting because I think the first kid she ever kissed, I don't think she killed him, but I think it put him in a comatose state, and
Cody.
Yeah, Cody is just forever there, and because they've had episode or issues where all of those people that she's touched are like living in her head, like she's interacted with them in that little like whatever's left over of them in her head, which is I don't know the tragedy that I loved it. I always liked that about Rogue.
Xavier's been able to basically silence them, the voices in her head. But for so long, maybe.
Yeah, because I don't know what remnant of them lives there. If it's the psychic remnant, maybe he could purge them. But if it's something that's more like we're dealing with comic books, is it some piece of their soul? Is it some piece of their existence? Is it tie her to them in some what kind of cosmic way? You never know in the comic books. They could really go any route with that.
Right.
So
yeah,
I always liked her powers too. Like that ability is nice.
Both Rogue and Gambit's powers are very touch based too, right?
Yeah,
kind of a thing that echoes between the two characters. I love seeing the two comboing together and just working together to kick some butt. Usually it's in some back alley, just something a little bit more seedy than the X-Men typically deal with when it's just Rogue and Gambit.
Yeah, especially with Gambit. Anything Gambit. I mean, he's from the Thieves Guild. He's always a little seedy. As a matter of fact, I always kind of like that pre-Rogue, Gambit was just kind of whatever because he was married to what's her name?
Belladonna.
Belladonna, yeah, he was married to Belladonna, and it was so, but he's always just kind of been a troublemaker. So in Rogue for all of her toughness and everything else, also has a pureness to her. Like she has this like innocence to her in a way that complements his roguishness, which is kind of funny to say as a play on words there, but because Rogue is not roguish, you know what I mean? But he is. So there's this kind of weird irony between them when it comes to how they balance each other out with her innocence and him being roguish. I don't know. I just find that kind of interesting in and of itself. I never really thought of that before. It's just kind of something that's starting to be born in my head here. It's kind of neat, but. And she's just a badass overall. She's
really is.
I think they underplay her sometimes. I mean, she's
you know what?
Up there power level wise.
X-Men 97, they did not underplay her.
No, not at all.
I loved her chucking freaking Captain America's shield. And you're like, okay, Captain America saw which direction she threw the shield, so he knows where the shield landed. Like that's probably very likely. But the fact that it landed miles away, Captain America's greatest weakness, mobility.
You're right. That's the thing with the X-Men movies. I think they made Rogue into the young girl who, with not Captain Marvel's powers, just her energy absorbing powers. I think they missed on it. They probably should have given her the actual powers.
Yeah, I feel like they've miscast her. And in the actresses that played her, I enjoy those actresses.
Yeah.
But I just felt like she was miscast.
I get that, but
What's
I
the
also
girl's name
see
from?
I also see bringing that power for a younger character almost seems more tragic because that character hasn't experienced touch and all those things. So it's one of those things too where you can show, wow, this character's really getting really impacted by it. So I can see why they chose a younger version of Rogue, but
Yeah.
it would be cool to see a more mature adult Rogue as well, just kicking ass.
But if I
Yeah, because
remember
Rogue was
correctly,
always. What's that? Go ahead, Wayne.
she got her Miss Marvel powers prior to joining the X-Men.
She was with the Brotherhood. She was
Yeah.
raised by Mystique and Destiny.
Right.
So she was on the villainous side of things. So yeah, when that fight happened with Miss Marvel, was because she was she was working the villainous thing. But in Miss Marvel was out of commission for a long time. Like
Yeah.
that character was not. She basically they kind of put her on hiatus for a bit as for having that. So, but yeah, there's a character that. How many incarnations have we had of Carol Danvers?
Right.
I mean that woman has been, Miss Marvel, and she's binary. I mean, like there's just
Marvel.
insane incarnations of her, and now they like landed her in the perfect role. Like suddenly she's one of the flagship characters in the comics. I mean, she's involved in everything. Everything.
That would be really
Did you
interesting.
see her when she? What's that?
I was going to say is, it'd be really interesting in Secret Wars if Captain Marvel and Rogue are both in it. That would be interesting what they do.
Oh, I would love to see Rogue just take all of the power away from Brie Larson's face and see her leave the MCU for a long time. I would love that.
What is it about her that you don't enjoy?
I think she's very flat for the role. Just I think as an actress, she's not really a kind person with her other co-stars. For me it's the actress's personality a lot of the time.
Yeah, see, I don't know her outside of the role. I don't know, I don't. So because I liked her in the role, but I just don't know. So I don't know the stigma that gets attached from her outside behavior or interpersonal behavior in the real world. I just don't know that. So
yeah.
But
I thought she was fine in the movies. Like even then, I don't know. I've never been huge into Miss Marvel, so I can't complain. Like from a comic book aspect of how she's adapted to screen, but I don't find her as a very likable character in the movies either.
Yeah. Well, I get that. I've heard that before. I always wonder where it came from because I don't mind her in there. But in the comics, Captain Marvel makes some really some decisions that make her kind of an ass sometimes. Like in a couple of the Secret Wars, she was not on the right side of things. At least from my standpoint, with just the because the one Civil Wars, I should say, not Secret Wars, Civil Wars. The one there's basically a mutant that can. It's kind of what's the movie with Tom Cruise where they have the precognitive people that can tell if a crime's going to be committed or whatever beforehand.
Report.
You know what I'm
Minority Report.
Minority Report, yeah. So they had a Minority Report type of thing where they had a mutant that could kind of tell if something's going to happen. So they were just incarcerating or taking down people that hadn't done anything, and she was all about it. And I'm like, no, we live in a multiverse. We live in a multiverse. You can't guarantee that was going to happen in R616 or whatever, or there's some variable, or even just knowing it was going to happen instead of just going and incarcerating or stopping a person. Why not be like, hey, I know this person. They're cool. They're my friend. They're my compatriot or whatever, and be like, hey, so this guy saw that this might happen, so we might want to take steps to prevent that.
Yeah.
Isn't that what a friend would do?
Yeah.
I'm like,
take him out for dinner or something, catch a movie.
Yeah, like have a sit down and be like, listen,
Yep, let's throw him in jail.
You're going to be going through some pretty dark stuff here in a little bit. I just want to make sure that you aren't going to try and destroy the world, you know?
Right. Are you okay?
Are you okay?
A little birdie told me you're in a dark place. The little birdie, the little birdie happens to be a mutant precog that actually has seen you decimating the entire world. So, but
if you don't like the option of going out for dinner, perhaps I could introduce you to my friend Wolverine, who takes care of business.
I don't know if Wolverine would have been on the same side of her, knowing the things that he has done.
Fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never liked that. That in storytelling, where you know something bad's going to happen and you're trying to prevent it, and are you forcing it to happen by trying to prevent it, or would it have happened if you didn't? That whole like paradox thing. I feel like it's a very inflexible thing. So it's going to go one of just a very small amount of ways, and all of them are so unflexible. They're not flexible. They're not. It's not new. It's just kind of a weak story driver, a weak theme. I've never been a fan of it. We know you're going to do something bad, so now you're bad kind of thing, and it just even the Minority Report, I didn't like it.
I mean, it's always been kind of one of those questions people ask, like, hey, if you have a time machine, would you go back and kill baby Hitler? Like,
yeah,
you know,
in could you?
Yeah, could
you? It's that in that because honestly, in Marvel's strategy, that if you did that, you would just create
another one,
another universe.
There'd be a Mecha Hitler next time.
So,
yeah,
Mecha Hitler.
Instead of one, there might be three.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. So, yeah, but there's no in all of nerddom, video games, sci-fi, comic books, even in there where it's tends to be, like a lot of times, a lot of in its hardest core things tends to be a little bit more of a male interest than a female interest. But it's funny to me that even given that, we still enjoy that romance side of things, that we enjoy those dynamics of the power couples and the tensions that arise between people, and just I like that part, and I'm a confident enough person to tell you that I like to see romance in my nerd worlds. You know what I mean? I'm glad that they do it.
Yeah, mindless violence.
What's that?
Mindless violence is awesome, but eventually you need to get in some meat and potatoes and have some real storyline there. And what's more real than your relationships with the people around you? And
there's one that X-Men 97 was dancing around as Morphin Wolverine.
Yeah. There you go.
They even have... What's that?
Who knows how season 2 is going to deal with that?
Hey there, bub.
Wolverine's going to go feral, so I don't think it's going to go very well. But
man, I can't wait to see what happens with Wolverine.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about. I really hope that all the changes that they had to make, with the writer or whatever and stuff like that, losing that guy. I mean, it sounds like they did it for the right reasons, but the part of me is like, God, just because someone does something really shitty doesn't mean that they aren't talented in another place. So I feel like it's okay to miss the talent and still understand why you shouldn't enjoy the talent when going forward, kind of thing.
Yeah. We'll have to see what they do with it. I mean, it seems like might have got a little bit of a hiccup in its scheduling, and that I think it's 2026 when we get new episodes, which sucks.
Unfortunately,
that sucks.
Yeah, that's something that's happening in this whole time of streaming. Massive amount of times between seasons of shows, and you only get 10 shows. You don't get your 22 episodes. People will, there's a lot of people who always want to argue for the entertainment industry and the struggles that it has and everything else. But I'm sorry, for 60 years, 70 years, however many years, they've been able to do this through economic upturns and downturns and and everything else. They've been able to do this. Now they have a mechanism that allows them to get away with not having to do it, and they're utilizing that. And the entertainment industry is kind of using that to their advantage, and it's kind of a gripe I have with them. I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait a year, 2 years, 3 years between seasons. You know, it just it gets old. So it gets to the point now where I'm like, I'll watch it when it's done.
Yeah,
you know, that's not good for their viewership. That's not good for their ratings.
Well, what I think it is,
what
I think it is, if you announce a season of this thing, just coming, in 9 months or whatever, right? Somebody will sign up for their annual membership of Disney Plus, right? And then, oh, hey guys, sorry, but new episodes in 2025 now. Whoops, sorry, or 2026 now. Whoops, sorry. It's like they don't lose anything by doing that, because a lot of people are just going to keep their subscription after that delay and be like, well, I guess I'll wait. Like Stranger Things, man. People have been keeping Netflix to watch the final season of Stranger Things forever.
It's
actually what I do. I do that with Dexter. Dexter's always on Showtime. So even years ago when Dexter was on, as soon as the season was over, I'd cancel my Showtime. When Dexter came back, I'd restart it.
Yep.
And now that Dexter's back, I started my Showtime again, and as soon as it's over, I'm going to shut it off.
There you go.
It's the only thing I watch on Showtime.
We have MGM Plus, I think it is, which has the show From. Oh man, the show From is amazing. But yeah, we do that with that. It's like
in my category, they're in my to watch list.
Oh yeah, it's just like the show Lost, except it's a little bit better and a little bit more focused than Lost was.
And that actor is from Lost, right?
Yeah.
The main character, didn't he play Michael or whatever in Lost?
Yeah, I think so.
So I never watched Lost, but I was told not to watch the last episode because I'd be really pissed if I watched all of Lost and then I watched the last episode.
Hey Wayne.
Oh, I go ahead.
Do you see
Lost the game?
Yep.
Yeah. So
I lost the game.
Oh, I lost the game.
That's funny. I agree that the last episode of Lost was weak. It's like that, and there were so many things left unsettled and everything else. I mean, it's the same, but I hate to miss out on this. I become of two minds for it, because if I'd have known the last season of the Game of Thrones was going to be like it was, I would have never watched Game of Thrones. Okay. But Lost, I might have still watched it, even though I was disappointed with the last episode.
Yeah,
that's how much I enjoyed Lost. That mystery, that constant, like, what is happening? They just were really good at really bringing that in.
Jumping back to Dexter, that's how the ending of Dexter made me feel. When the original ending of Dexter made me feel, I was like, really?
Oh, now he's a lumberjack.
I guess he's a lumberjack now.
Yeah.
Like they could.
I'm glad they came out with New Blood, because I think it gave closure, and then I think they saw the success of New Blood, and they're like, well, let's stick with it. In this new series that they have, man, they did a great job of recasting. They really did.
Yeah. And the original Dexter, so I was kind of weird with it. Like, after about, I think I got four and a half seasons in, and it started turning into just Monster of the Week. It was really repetitive. So I skipped forward and just watched the last half of the last season, just kind of doing it. And honestly, I didn't feel lost. That says something. Not enough had changed where I felt like I had missed a ton, which really screamed volumes to me. It's let it go too long without a dynamic change. But I really did not like how they ended things with the weird shit with his sister. That was weird. It was just it just didn't make sense. It also didn't make sense. It also didn't make sense for a truly sociopathic personality. He's supposed to be a sociopath, and that kind of attachment, it just does not compute. I didn't like that, but I'm glad that the new one's around. I'm gonna give the. What's
What a
that?
note to end our romance and love episode on,
Yeah.
talking about Dexter and his sister.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah, I probably should. I probably
Dexter.
should. But well, it's Dexter.
Anyways, so
Yeah, dude.
Storm and T'Challa.
Yeah, right. And all the other ones.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah, that's too funny. Yeah, it's. But but there were. I guess going back to the just the power couples. There's so many. We could probably do 100 episodes on power couples through
Easily, yeah.
things. We can from obscure ones that were still a power couple. For like Megan and Captain Britain. I don't know if you know either of those characters. They were two of the main characters in the Excalibur series of the X-Men. That's where Kitty and Nightcrawler ended up after all the stuff in the Morlock tunnels after the Marauders when they were all wounded and stuff. They ended up there, and they were there with Rachel Summers Phoenix, and so it was like Nightcrawler, Phoenix, Rachel Summers Phoenix, Nightcrawler, Phoenix, Kitty, Captain Britain, Megan, Nightcrawler. I think if I said Nightcrawler twice, but it was a great team. They had a lot of, and it was very. It was very British. I mean, it was supposed to be. They were over in Britain, but it had a very British feel to it. It was a good series. And Megan is a Faye kind of character, and her and Captain Britain were a couple, but she was whimsical and her kind of fatum, and so there were times where she was really enamored with Nightcrawler, and she's a shape changer. So like they're working out and doing danger room type stuff, and like a couple of them she like morphed into like a female version of Nightcrawler and was rather seductive to him. And he's Nightcrawler, like Captain Britain's kind of a badass, and Nightcrawler's like, what am I doing? He's like teleport out there because he doesn't want to get torn apart by Brian. But it was. But they again that made it interesting. It didn't feel like they were being. It was just a little bit of flavor in an episode. It wasn't what the issue. It wasn't what the whole issue was about. It didn't have to be. It wasn't a romance novel. It was a nice balance of just showing characters, and because romance and involvement with romantic partners is a part of real life. So giving that dynamic in comic books just grounds it a little bit more, to makes it a little bit more like you could put yourself there. You could be the superhero. So I think it's important.
Awesome. Well, guys,
Yeah.
this has been an awesome episode.
Sign it off there.
Sign it off there, yeah. Nerds.
Happy Valentine's Day, nerds.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day, guys.
Thanks for the powwow, and we will catch you all later.
See you.